yourself. So if that means, silencing any notifications, closing that Amazon shopping window, whatever that looks like to you. And we'll dive into today's theme, which is calming our nervous system. In my work with clients and in my own experience, I see overactive nervous systems quite often. We operate a lot of the time in fight or flight mode. And we're going to talk about ways to bring more balance to our nervous system, to calm ourselves, to provide ourselves some self-care. And this is going to be an interactive presentation, interactive experience with you all, just to let everybody know. So have you ever had a situation that felt in your body like it was a threat, even though you consciously knew it wasn't? Like having a to-do list, for example. Sometimes I can look at my to-do list and I can just have a pit of anxiety of, I have to send this email. I have to, get groceries. I have to buy these flights 6 months in advance because they're going to sell out or the prices are going to, jump 3x. And sometimes we can recognize this logically that, this thing that I am stressing out about is really not a huge deal. And we might say to ourselves, I shouldn't be feeling this way. This is nothing. And we try to push it away, which sometimes makes it harder. Like, can anybody relate to that? Now, I remember when I was leaving my job, this kind of high stress job that I had. And the first week that I had left, I was thinking about my to-do list and like things like going to the post office and the bank and getting groceries. And I was feeling like this anxiety as if it was the same, presentation that I was going to give to a bunch of senior executives. And in that moment, I realized, wait a minute, it's not the job. It's actually me. It's my relationship to these things. And the way it feels like, and maybe some of you can relate to this, it feels like an elephant that's afraid of a mouse that doesn't know. It's an elephant that doesn't know its own personal power. We become sidetracked. We kind of lose ourselves. And this is what an overstimulated nervous system can feel like. It feels like fear. We know things consciously aren't threats, but emotionally we're responding in a different way. And if we're on edge, if we have anxiety, if we're perceiving threats, then there's no difference between that perceived threat and a real one. But here's the good news. There's a way for us to calm our nervous systems. And it comes down to changing our internal landscape. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to cover 3 things. First is the autonomic nervous system and why it's important. What knocks it out of balance? Why do we sometimes see things as threats that really aren't threats? And finally, we're going to do a practice on how to regulate it. So just a quick overview on the autonomic nervous system. So the autonomic nervous system, it's the part of the central nervous system that regulates our bodily functions, right? So think of your heart rate, blood flow, your breathing, all of these things. And we want a balance between the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. So the parasympathetic is the rest and digest. So imagine, let's go back in human evolution, human history, like 20,000 years. And imagine you're sitting around with your tribe around a campfire. You're sitting there, everybody is calm, you're relaxed, blood is flowing through your system, your attention is broad, your heart rate is low. And then let's say, and you might feel like this, right? This is the parasympathetic nervous system, feels calm, at ease. But then let's say that around this campfire, you hear a stick snap or a rustling in the bushes over there. And immediately you become on edge. Your adrenaline starts pumping through your system. Cortisol, the stress hormone, starts going through your blood. Your heart rate increases, your breathing your breathing becomes shallower. Your attention narrows on what could be a perceived threat. Kind of like this. These are the 2 parts of our autonomic nervous system, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. And these are constantly balancing each other, right? And it's important to understand this because even if that rustling in the bushes turns out to just be a bird, that's not really a threat, it doesn't matter. If it's a perceived threat, we will respond. Our bodies, our system is designed to respond to things as threats. So it could be just an email to your boss or just getting groceries. You're going to respond as if you were being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. And the sympathetic nervous system, it exists to keep us alive, right? It tells us to either fight or flee, which keeps us alive. Problem is, 99.9% of things today that activate our sympathetic nervous system aren't really threats. And so we become in this condition to be in overdrive from this constant stimulation, and we perceive mundane things to be threats. And so some of the things that can activate the sympathetic nervous system are fear of repetition of negative experiences that we've had in the past, fear of criticism or rejection or failure. We might have, catastrophizing about the future. These are all things that can kind of enhance and kind of keep us stuck in this sympathetic fight or flight mode. And our mind is kind of like a snow globe. So think of it this way, settled autonomic nervous system. If you're in parasympathetic, kind of feels like your mind is a snow globe. You can see what's in the middle of this thing, right? All of the snow has settled to the bottom. And with an unsettled nervous system, if you're in fight or flight, kind of feels all shook up, right? Not the best place to be in. Oh, can you all still hear me? Okay, thank you, George, for nodding there. I think my headphones went out on me for a second there. But this is essentially what our mind is like, the settled nervous system and an unsettled one. I think we can all relate to this, right? We all have times where we feel settled, we feel calm, we feel at ease. We have times where we're knocked out of balance, and it happens to all of us. And like Tim and Matthew were saying in the previous presentation, we have ways to regulate our system, ways to take care of ourselves. And so this really comes down to self-care. And I like to think about two different categories of ways to regulate our nervous system. We have addition by addition, and then addition by subtraction. This will make sense in a minute. So thinking about ways to regulate our nervous system, things that we can add into a daily routine that will help us stay present, stay balanced, stay centered. One of them is mindful movement, right? So yoga, or stretching, tai chi, or qigong can be really effective to keep us grounded, to keep us centered and not getting in our heads. Light exercise, and this, can be different things to different people. Somebody might want to go out and run a mile. Somebody else might just want to take a walk around a block. And both of those are completely valid ways to regulate your nervous system. Spending time in nature. We are animals at the end of the day, and our bodies actually respond better to being out in nature, not being, cooped up indoors all the time. If we have healthy sleep habits, our system is so much better regulated when we're getting a regular, healthy amount of sleep. Art is another fantastic way. If we're playing music or painting, sculpting, whatever that is, something that kind of brings you back into yourself. And meditation as well, which we'll do in a little bit here. So these are all ways, things that you can add into your routine or into your day that can kind of help you come back to balance between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems, between the rest and digest and fight or flight. And then we come to addition by subtraction. So cutting these things out of your life can help regulate your nervous system. Limiting time on our devices. So, if you're like me, you might have a laptop, you might have a phone, you might have an iPad, multiple screens that you're looking at. And this comes with a lot of distraction. And so when we get distracted, when our minds are scattered, it knocks us out of balance. It knocks our nervous system out of balance. Same with consumption of the news. And now I'm not saying to go be, a hermit and live under a rock, but if we are constantly looking at news that is talking about the 1% of things that are going wrong, the awful things in the world, that's actually going to have an effect on our nervous system. That's going to have an effect on our mental health. Creating some distance, if we can, from unhealthy relationships, right? If there are situations that you're in, that can be a really powerful way to stay present and stay grounded within yourself, right? Limiting alcohol, it's another thing that doesn't help our nervous systems. And also doing less, right? Sometimes we get so caught up in the amount of things that we think we should be doing, do. But in reality, if we prioritize the most important things, that can also just provide some self-compassion, provide some self-care, and just say, wait a minute, I don't need to do all this stuff to be enough. I'm enough just as I am. So these are some different ways to regulate the nervous system. And what we're going to do is actually a resourcing practice, one that I really love that I use myself, that I use with clients. And the whole idea is, it's called a resourcing practice. And first, what is a resource? A resource is essentially anything that helps you feel good, feel strong, feel loved, or safe. Something that helps you feel good, strong, loved, or safe. And there are two types of resources, or two categories that I like to think about. Resources that are outside of you, external resources, and resources that are inside of you, internal. And I love this practice because this is really applied mindfulness, right? It's taking this concept of mindfulness and it's actually having a tangible effect on our lives. And before we dive into it, I just want to give credit to Jeremy Hunter, who is the founding director of the Executive Mind Leadership Institute at Claremont Graduate College, who he brought this practice into my consciousness, which I'm really grateful for. So let's dive into this. So giving a few examples of external and internal resources. I'm going to share these examples. What I want you to do is start thinking of your own, because that's what we're going to do next. So once again, a resource is anything that helps you feel good, strong, loved, or safe. So starting with external resources, a few examples. We've had positive experiences, maybe a birthday party or a trip or a date that we went on that we can fondly recall. Places we enjoy. So if you enjoy hiking or a favorite city or a favorite town or maybe a space in nature that really speaks to you. People you love. People who you're close to, maybe it's family, maybe it's a close friend, maybe it's a teacher or a mentor, just somebody you feel close to. A pet as well. So many of us have a really fond relationship with our pets. A pet that soothes us. Maybe it's a piece of music or art that we find soothing as well. So these are all examples of external resources, external things that help us feel good, strong, loved, or safe. Now, internal resources are things like positive personal qualities, right? Maybe we really appreciate our own sense of humor, or appreciate that could be anything really. Appreciate our hair, whatever it is. Nourishing internal beliefs. So things that we've really come to believe about ourselves, or things that, an idea of like tying in self-care here, internal belief that I am always enough, kind of really going back into that, like positive affirmations can be incredibly helpful. And then strong personal values, right? Like maybe there's a time in your life where your values were on display, of authenticity, or of helping others feel comfortable, or whatever personal value that's important to you is. These are all examples of strong internal resources. Any questions about that before we move on to this next little part? Feel free to come off mute if so. Otherwise, I will keep moving on. Excellent. Okay, feel free to interrupt me if there are questions, because it's hard for me to see the chat in this view that I have. But what I would like you to do is, if you have a sheet of paper and a pen handy, make it real, you can write this down. If not, you can think to yourself, and that's okay too. But I'd like you to just list at least 3 resources that you have. 3 resources. They can be internal or external. And I'll go back to this screen so you can see some of the examples. But just listing out 3 resources you have. And you don't need to write an essay on each of them, but just write them down. And I'll wait and see if there are thumbs up, if people have their resources. Mark, thank you for the thumbs up there. I appreciate that.
Alec, would it be helpful to share some of them in
seconds.
the chat?
It would be, actually. And if you'd be able to read the chat out, that would be fantastic, because I can't see it, unfortunately, on the view that I have.
Sally can do
Would
that.
be
If
cool?
everyone sends to the group or to Sally individually, she might be able to read some of them.
Thank you, Sally. And for those who don't know, Sally and I we go back to our days in college, and Sally's a good friend of mine. Yeah, if somebody wants to come off mute as well and share what their one of their resources is, that would work as well.
Yeah, this is George. I got a couple. Nature is just outside my door, so I can enjoy it just about any time the weather's halfway is nice. I have a great wife and companion who keeps me grounded. And I think I've developed over time some very strong values.
George, those are beautiful. And can I ask, if you don't mind me asking a follow-up question, how do you feel when you think of those things? The nature, your strong values. Partner.
I feel good when I think about them. I feel good when I'm out in nature. It's calming. My wife, like I said, really keeps me grounded. I feel good around her. And I think the values I've developed are good. And I do my best to set a benign example with them.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. You feel good, not only in those experiences, in those resources, but even just bringing them to mind. That's a fantastic example. Thank you for sharing those. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I see Shagufta. Am I pronouncing that correctly? I see you have your hand raised.
Yes. And my resources are music and food. I love to go out and eat, and that's very enjoyable and brings soothing, happy endorphins to me.
Yes.
And
I see it on your face just as you're saying that. It's beautiful.
Yes, and the third is the people, especially my siblings. They bring a lot of joy to me, and I'm, very happy around them. So
wonderful. Thank you for sharing those.
Sure.
Yeah. And I saw Mark. I know you had. Oh, I hear somebody else there.
So sorry. This is Sally. We have a few in the chat, and I'm happy to read them.
Yeah. Please do, Sally.
Great. So from Rachel, we have music, my cat, and nature. From Allison, we have my resources are Molly and Max, my niece Isabella and her mother, my nephews and their mother, and my eyes and my devotion to those I love. Matthew says, my dog is a constant resource, brings security, comfort, love, even a sense of self-esteem. Aish says, research, music, physical activity are my external resources. Practicing self-love / compassion, dreaming, and creativity are my internal resources. And then one more from Wendy that says, places I enjoy, gardens and nature, art and music, museums, learning songs, and personal strength, resilience, humor, creativity, and adventures.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing those, Sally. Sensing some themes around, nature, pets, people, values. Yeah, these are all amazing things that we have at our disposal, right? And in times of challenge, I think we sometimes forget that we have these things in our lives that can help us stay grounded and help us stay centered. So it's amazing to see the community sharing. And Mark, I see you have your hand up there. We'll do one more, and then we'll move to the next part of this.
Yeah, I've got one. Maybe you can help me sort it out a little bit. My work is something that gives me focus and makes me feel good because I feel like I'm pretty good at it. But the type of work I do is build things. I was believed I was put on this earth to build things. But a lot of times there are things I haven't done before. There's a challenge involved, so I develop anxiety around that, having to do something I haven't done before. It always turns out good, or satisfactory anyway, but I still can't seem to get over that hurdle of, kind of having that initial anxiety about tackling something that I might not have done before, even something that I've done before, I don't know why
I hear
I
you.
feel that way.
And that's completely valid to feel that way, right? I've been in that space as well. Even if there's something I've done, might be like going out on a bike ride for me, that a route that I've done before. And at the beginning of it, I'm thinking, oh, how am I going to do? Am I going to do this as well as I did last time? Am I going to be as fast as I was last time? And then it always ends up being totally fine. But there is maybe that initial spike of anxiety. What I would ask you there is is there a feeling of accomplishment once you have done it, once you've built that thing, once you see your creation in the flesh? How does that feel?
It always feels good. And, I usually get a lot of validation from my clients saying it was better than they hoped for, or, I kind of help people create their dreams, and it always turns out good. That feels good.
Yeah, amazing. So maybe your resource there is not when you're starting out to build something, but the finished product, an example of something that you've completed that went really well, that you felt proud about, that your clients felt really happy about. That could be your resource that you can call on. So thanks for sharing that. All right. So the next part of this, so I'm loving all of the energy here of everybody sharing these resources. And the next part of this is to go a little bit deeper. So what I'd like you to do is to just choose one of your resources. Just choose one of them. I know it might be hard, but just choose one for now. And write down just 3 details to describe it. Just 3 details. So for example, one of my resources is I love walking in nature. There's a space near my house in California that I really love walking in. And in this resource, I'm imagining the rain is falling down. I'm feeling calm in my body. I feel at ease, and I see fog. Right? Those are my 3 details of that experience. So just take one of your resources and write down at least 3 details to describe it. And it could be a specific experience that you've had with this resource. It could be a specific walk that you've gone on in nature. It could be a specific time that you were interacting with a grandchild or with a loved one. It can be a specific time that your values were on display. I'll give folks another 30 seconds or so to write down those details. Really make it real. And as you're finishing up that maybe last detail, notice what happens to your body, to your breath, to your heart rate, your muscle tension. What's happening as you're thinking about these things? Shagufta, I see a smile on your face. That's amazing, right? I can see there's radiance in this room thinking about these things.
I know I was thinking about a white tablecloth with a flower vase and a plate of sushi.
Yeah, that's amazing. You made it really descriptive. I love that. That's a resource for you. So we've all have these experiences, right? We all have these things that we can call on in times of stress. And we're going to do a practice together to make this real. And so this won't be a long one, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to guide you through a practice that will apply this resource, that will essentially help us calm our nervous system. So what we'll do is it'll be in 2 parts. The first one, I'm going to invite you in to just ground yourself in the present moment. And then we'll bring to mind our resource. So before we begin, I like to do this practice with my eyes closed. If that is uncomfortable for you for any reason, you can keep your eyes open and gently shift your focus downward. So there's space to keep your eyes open if that is comfortable. But I'll close my eyes. And right now, before we dive in, if there are any distractions in the room or the space that you're in, any doors that you need to close, any phones that you need to silence, or conversations you need to wrap up, just do that briefly. And I invite you to just, put everything down and just find a comfortable position in the chair or the space that you're in. And if it feels comfortable, you can close your eyes and just take a series of deeper, nourishing breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. Doing that again, just nourishing, deep breath in and letting it go. Last time, breathing in, making it maybe a deeper breath than you've experienced today. You can let it go. And just start to bring your attention inward to your internal landscape. Just see if you can take the temperature of the body, so to speak, in this moment. Are you calm and at ease? Are there any thoughts that are running through your head? Thinking about what's going to happen next? What happened before this? Just notice. And I invite you to intentionally bring your attention into your feet, specifically to the contact points between your feet and the floor beneath you. If your feet aren't touching the floor, you can use your legs, the contact points between your legs and the chair, the couch that you're sitting on. Just let your attention rest in those contact points and in the solidity of the floor or the support beneath you. Not trying to make anything happen. Just resting in that contact between your body and that support. Now gently gliding your focus up from your feet through your calves, your knees, your thighs, into your sit bones, your lower back. And let your attention rest in the contact points between your body and the chair or the couch. Notice what that feels like. Have this solid object supporting you. Nothing else to do. Just observing those sensations, feeling held. Now letting that sensation, that attention flow upward through your stomach, your chest, your shoulders and neck, all the way into the head and the crown of the head. Just seeing if you can zoom out, get a sense of the entire body. How the entire body is just occupying this space. Just resting in it. And what I invite you to do now is to just bring to mind your resource. The one that you vividly described. Bring it to mind as if it were real in this moment. Noticing the details. Imagining it as if it were real right now. Just notice what sensations you feel in your body. Is there any place in the body that feels particularly calm and at ease? Any sensation that's particularly pleasant and comforting? And as you keep this resource in mind, just absorb this sensation, this pleasant sensation in your body. And if it's hard to identify a pleasant sensation, it's perfectly okay. Identify a part of the body that feels at least neutral. And just open to what that feels like. Just continuing to imagine this resource as if it were real, as if you were in this experience. Really deeply experience this. Not needing to make anything happen. But just letting yourself sink more deeply into the resource. Into this nourishing, positive experience. What are you feeling in your body right now? Is your heart rate any different? Is your breathing more easeful? your muscles more relaxed. Just notice if there are any shifts in your body, not labeling them or analyzing them. Just being a curious observer. As we begin to wind down this practice, just take a second and notice what's different now compared to before we started. Is the body any different? What words would you use to describe it? Knowing that you can come back to this resource at any time. At any time. I invite you to come back into your body. Maybe wiggle your fingers and toes. And in your own time, you can open the eyes. Excellent work, everybody. It can be so easy to get sucked into the day-to-day. And practices like this can remind us we can shift our experience, even in small ways. And when we do that, we realize we have far more control over our mind, over our experience than we thought. This isn't about, escaping and pretending everything's okay. But this is drawing on something that can give us strength to deal with whatever is present in our reality right now, whether it's easeful or challenging. This is just a resource that is at your disposal. It's always at your disposal that you can draw on. And as we just wrap this up, I just want to share a couple of words around I mentioned before that I am a coach when it comes to people with chronic pain. And this is something that's near and dear to my heart. And the practice that we just did is actually is the first step to healing from chronic pain in my view. It's regulating our nervous system, everything that we've been talking about. And chronic pain, maybe some of you can relate to this. It's quite an epidemic, not just in the United States, but throughout the world. 60% of American adults are suffering with at least one chronic condition. It's more people than heart disease, diabetes, and cancer combined. And it costs our economy about $4 trillion a year in lost wages and lost productivity, in healthcare costs. And traditional treatments really aren't helping. The Lancet, which is a prestigious medical journal, said back in 2011 that currently available chronic pain treatments provide modest improvements in pain and minimum improvements in physical and emotional functioning. But mind-body approaches actually really do help. And specifically, there are approaches that have been found to have some incredible recovery success. For example, with back pain, there's a Dr. John Sarno out of NYU who used a mind-body approach to heal 88% of his patients who had herniated discs. Fibromyalgia sufferers, there's a study that was done that showed 85% of patients with a specific mind-body approach had a 30% or higher reduction in their pain. And pain reprocessing therapy is a new technique, new modality that has been used. And there was a study that was done that showed 2/3 of people who had pain for an average of 11 years before that were pain-free after a 4-week pain reprocessing therapy cycle. So this is something that I'm deeply passionate about. And what we've just done, calming our nervous system, is really can be a first step to healing from chronic conditions. And if you want the next steps, then you can put it in the chat for the DBSA team to bring me back for the next education day where we can go more into that. But let me just share one last thing, kind of bring it back to this example of the elephant and the mouse. This whole idea, when we're able to regulate our nervous systems, call on resources that are always at our disposal, we see life in a more realistic way. We become the elephant that knows its power. And I wish each of you, the best in navigating your challenges. And if you have any questions or want to drop me a line, my email is right there, alec.kassin@gmail.com. So thank you so much, all of you, for your time and for your attention. I really appreciate it.